You found yourself on another episode of Locked On Bulls. Over the course of this past weekend, we saw the best and the worst of what the Chicago Bulls could be this upcoming season. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to look at things ahead for the Chicago Bulls as well. We're going to talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Bulls fans, man? We want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls. Member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. You can start your season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Haize. I'm host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central, Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And let's get into it. So we saw the best of what the Chicago Bulls could be, the worst of what the Chicago Bulls could be over the course of this weekend since we had our last episode here at Locked On Bulls. The first one, Bulls had a 133-122 win against the Milwaukee Bucks. And this was a fun game to watch for the Chicago Bulls because you had Zach, who had a rocking and rolling in the first half of the game. He ends up going 2 for 8 in the second half, but he finishes with 25 points. You get Coby White, who finishes with 35 points, going 7 of 13 from the three-point line, 12 of 20 overall, an effective night for him. You get Nikola Vucevic, who may be the surprise Bull so far this season because he's been the most consistent as far as when you factor in everything except defense. Of course, defense. I mean, he's consistent defensively, consistently bad, but consistent nonetheless. He had 22 points in that game as well. We had 6 Bulls players score in double digits, and that was the best that we saw the Chicago Bulls offense with his new style and everything look, period. It's the best that we've seen it look. And then you turn around and then you get the game against the OKC Thunder. Now, while the Thunder are one of the best teams on both sides of the ball in the NBA, period, right? There's no harm. Well, let me say no harm, but there's nothing to hang your head down about losing to the OKC Thunder. But it wasn't just about it wasn't about the Bulls losing that game. It was how they lost that game. The Bulls looked lethargic. They were bad offensively. They were bad defensively. And the only reason why this wasn't even more of a blowout loss is that the Chicago Bulls shot like 32% from the field, but the OKC Thunder were right there. In the first half of that game, they shot the ball bad. I mean, they only end up shooting the ball 42% overall in the game. They improved it in the second half. The Bulls shot 34%. But overall, the thing that really stood out the most about this game is just the fact that the Bulls, when they face off against a team with length, when they face off a team with some defensive prowess, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? That's the question that you have to ask yourself, man. It's bad. Listen, and that's where you got to wonder, like, where's the Chicago Bulls team going? It's only 3-game sample size. I want to be clear here. Nothing too good or too bad that can be taken from these 3 games means that it's going to maintain for the full season. The Bulls' strengths could get better. Their weaknesses can get worse or better as far as they strengthen up those weaknesses, or vice versa. They could become a worse offensive team. But the Bulls are leading the league in pace right now. They are playing the style that they talked about that they wanted to play at training camp. They've done it. This is the first year where you can say they've done it. It's a 3-game sample size. We got a long season left, but it looks like they are doing it. But one thing that looks like it's being a byproduct of at least how the Chicago Bulls are playing that system is we're second in the league in turnovers. If it wasn't for the Toronto Raptors, the Bulls would be the worst turnover team in the league, right? And so the Bulls have some serious things that they need to figure out and ask themselves about. What are they going to do? What are they going to be able to do to fix some of the things of this team going forward? And what team are they going to be? The Bulls still aren't done yet. I know that they wanted to build an identity. They aren't remotely close to finishing their identity yet. They're just not, right? You can't realistically say this team is anywhere close to having a real identity yet. But the thing is that we see signs of good. How this team spreads the ball around when they're not turning it over, it's going to offer a lot of opportunity for the whole roster, everybody to stay involved, right? Nikola Vucevic has adapted more well than I think most people, if they're being honest, would have expected. Yes, you still got the things that you could always critique Nikola Vucevic about, and that's his defense. Him and Josh Giddey's defense has been trash, right? But you're getting a surprising level of performance from Nikola Vucevic. Vuce is shooting the ball 53% from the field, 53% also from three-point range. Like, who would have thought that this Vuce would have shown? Now, let's see how long he can do it, right? Like, that's the thing. You want to see how long he can do it, but he's chipping in efficiency. Vuce has averaged the same numbers since he's basically been here with a Bull. It's been 18, 19, and 11. That's basically right around the place he's hovered at. But the efficiency has dropped every season for Vuce. So Vuce, the player that I thought was going to be the odd man out in this new flow offense, has actually adapted pretty damn well. He's adapted pretty damn well. Zach Lavine has put together some really good first halves of the game. Every first half that Zach Lavine has played in every game so far has been excellent. The second half, he hasn't shot the ball well. He didn't even shoot the ball well in the second half against Milwaukee, but the difference is that he got into his bag offensively, he got some steals, he played heads up, and he moved the ball around when he needed to, and he realized early into that second half, I may not have it. Plus, Coby and Vuce are cooking right now. Let me let them cook, right? So it's been that as well. It's been that as well. And so when it comes down to it is that Vuce isn't the problem, right? And so there are two players that have been definitely part of the problem. I'm not saying that they're the problem, but they're absolutely part of the problem. And one, I hate to say this, Coby White got to be better. Yeah, while he is averaging 18 points per game, the 42% shooting from the field, the 25% shooting from three-point range, that's not going to cut it. Not when you are coming into this season and you are vying to be the number one option, and Zach Lavine has been better at that than you have so far. Zach Lavine has put up some really good numbers, basically 25 points per game on efficient shooting, 55% from the field, 47%. But the second halves of the games and the turnovers have been absolutely crazy. Zach Lavine is averaging 5 turnovers per game. The next closest player to him is, guess who? Coby White at 3.3. We got to have better from those guys. The Bulls need to be better. Zach Lavine and Coby White have to be better. Where I thought coming into this, I would have been saying Nikola Vucevic has to match, or we need to have a third player to match the intensity and what Coby and Zach are doing. Like, Zach and Coby have done it in flashes. They've done it in halves. They've done it in games, right? One game so far. We need better from them heading into this second week. We have to have better from Coby White and Zach Lavine if we want to be this team that can punch above our weight, right? So those things are there. Coaching. I see my boy Winton in the comment section. The Bulls coaching, as far as second half adjustments in 2 games, has been terrible. The offensive scheme, I'm not blaming on the coaches, because in the game where they weren't turning the ball over, that offensive scheme looked amazing. Not just good, it looked amazing. And Billy Donovan is not coaching these players to say, hey, go out and turn it over. I'm not putting that on coaching. The defensive adjustments, that's 100% on coaching. That's just, there's no way around that. That's on coaching, right? You got to be better in how you execute the ball defensively. Like, we get it. You don't have a great defense to be a top 12, 15 team in the league, but the lapses that we're seeing aren't just lapses due to lack of skill. The lapses due to players just not giving consistent effort. And also sometimes we adjust too late, right? Like, extending we made an adjustment in the game against the Thunder. The Bulls went from running that 2-3 zone traditionally to then they extended the 2-3 zone, and then they went into a zone man coverage combination. So they made adjustments. The adjustments didn't work. So whether that's on execution or whether that's on the coaching staff didn't make the right adjustments, we can't say, if you look at this game, that they just did not make adjustments. They made adjustments, but the adjustments didn't work, right? And you're facing off against the Thunder team. How much adjustments can work? Coach Mike Dangold over there is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I love Coach Mike Danholt. I wish we would have hired him instead of Billy Donovan personally, but this is what we're dealing with. And this is where this team now sits at. And so because of that, you got now a week of data. You've seen a lot of different skill sets, a lot of different type of teams as far as how they run. Now I want to see how you come out of this second game. I want to see how you come out of this. Out of this first week into the second week of the season, and I want to see now, how do you refine some of the things that you've done well, and how do you eliminate some of the things you have not done well, or start pointing in the direction of fixing those things. It's still a young season. It's more than enough time for this stuff to change. But the Bulls got a tough week ahead. We got 3 games next week. And we start off tonight with Memphis. Wednesday against Orlando. and then Friday against Brooklyn. Now, Brooklyn shouldn't be a hard team, but they just beat a pretty good team. Who did Brooklyn just beat? Brooklyn just beat Milwaukee. I'm not giving them too much credit on that. So it is what it is, right? You should be able to beat the Brooklyn Nets. But the Orlando Magic and the Memphis Grizzlies, they're coming into into Chicago, and they ain't taking no prisoners. So let's see what the Bulls do, how they do improve this week. But I can tell you one thing that's not going to change, despite some Bulls fans asking for it. Next segment, we're going to talk about why the lineup changes are not coming any real time soon for the Chicago Bulls. We'll get into it, but first we got to get some message from FanDuel. All right, everydayers, I want to thank you guys as always for tuning in, man, and also thank you for checking out our sponsors as well. And we're going to talk about a sponsor that we always have, and that is FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. You missed out on the $250, but now they got the $150 for you. That still helps you out quite a lot. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I've been telling you guys how important that is of a tool to get all the information you need on the same page where you place your bets. It just streamlines that whole process. So go to FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. You get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. When you win your first $5 bet, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. I want to thank you guys as always for tuning in, especially the live viewers here over on YouTube at 11 a.m. Chicago time, 12 p.m. Eastern. Y'all holding this down as we switch this show to be a live show. But with that said, there's been a lot of talk recently about changing the lineups for the Chicago Bulls. You got some fans that are saying Ayo Dosunmu should be the starting point guard over Josh Giddey. But when you look at Ayo's numbers and Josh Giddey's numbers, I'm sorry, Josh Giddey has played better than Ayo Dosunmu as in the totality of basketball. Defensively, Ayo Dosunmu kills Josh Giddey. But when you look at assists, rebounds, scoring, efficiency, Josh Giddey's playing a pretty damn good game. And I think people who can put their hate aside and actually objectively look at basketball will see that Josh Giddey's been solid. Has he been great? No. Has he been $30 million good? No. But he's been playing pretty solidly, right? And then, of course, you have the ones that are asking for P. Will to sit down. P. Will, who is doing P. Will-like things, forever you want to take that. He's doing a lot of P. Will type things out there. But that's probably not happening either, right? And I get why, right? This Bulls team that lacks defense, it's obvious, and also the chemistry that we saw Ayo Dosunmu and Coby White have last year. It's natural when your team's facing some adversity to want to go back to what we saw work, right? So nobody's crazy for saying or asking if Ayo Dosunmu should be the starting point guard. The Bulls aren't going to make that move yet because of one of the reasons that I laid out there. Josh Giddey is playing cool, right? I want to be clear there. Now, is it great? No, it's not great. Is it bad defensively? Yeah, it's bad defensively. But Josh Giddey is averaging 15 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5.3 assists on 48% shooting. And, oh, by the way, he's shooting the ball 44% from three-point line. The best of his career while taking the same amount of three-pointers he's taken over the course of his NBA career. He's gotten better as a three-point shooter. And I think that sometimes it's the same thing. Josh Giddey is going to move into that same kind of conversation that people had about Nikola Vucevic the last few years. Whereas no matter what Vuce does, good or bad, people are going to blame what happens on him because the one thing that he doesn't do is he doesn't defend, right? And I'll say this, Josh Giddey has been pretty active defensively. Does he still need to get better? Absolutely. Is there still some of those awareness issues? Absolutely. That's part of why Josh Giddey is only playing 27 minutes per game for the Chicago Bulls is because there are times where defensively we just have to have Ayo out on the court. There's those times that happen where defensively you got to have Ayo, you got to have him out there on the court. And because of that, Josh Giddey's sitting, right? So you look at Ayo and Josh, who are both averaging around 27 minutes per game. They're like, that's your point guard minutes right there. Even though Lonzo's in there, we know that Ayo doesn't just play point guard. So there's that aspect of it. And then P. Will. I don't know what to say when it comes to P. Will. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take to motivate the kid. The kid has had an all-star group of people who theoretically should have been able to improve his game. He's worked with Peter Patton heavily. He's worked with Dribble Too Much for 3 years now. He worked with DeMar DeRozan extensively in the offseason. He's gone to the Drew League. He's done pickup games. He's done, I don't even know. At this point, Dr. Phil himself could sit down with P. Will, and I don't think it would change anything, right? But for the credit that P. Will is, you guys know I talk about everything from both sides. The offense ain't been nothing to sing home about. It's been bad, 30% shooting from the field, 33% shooting from three-point range. But defensively, go and look at where they use P. Will defensively. P. Will has been guarding centers 28% of his time on the court so far this season. 28%. I want to be clear here. P. Will has guarded centers less than 5% for his whole entire career before coming into this season. That's how much the Bulls centers, both in Jalen Smith as well, because Jalen Smith don't get eliminated from that. Jalen Smith is just as bad defensively almost as Nikola Vucevic. But they are going to P. Will to guard up in the rotation, and he's done an adamant job at that. P. Will has done really good at guarding centers this year. And so for the people that are like, oh, well, he can't play power forward. Hell, he's guarding centers. Centers. So there's something to be said about that as well. I just want to be clear there that it's not as straightforward as what some people are making out for. And that is why P. Will right now is in that starting lineup, and why that lineup is probably not going to change, because right now the Chicago Bulls are better defensively when he's on the court. So far, in the 87 minutes that Patrick Williams has played this season, 87 minutes, the opposing teams have an offensive rating of almost 10 points per less per 100 possessions. They have a rebounding percentage of 6% less when P. Will's on the court. The Bulls average 9.8% more steals when P. Will is on the court. P. Will is infecting the game of basketball in positive ways, otherwise, that don't always show up to the untrained eye if you're not looking at it. Offensively, he needs to be better, right? That's why I like to talk about things from all sides. He has to be better offensively. You are a starter in this league. You got to be better offensively. You got to attack closeouts. You got to go after putbacks. You got to do those things as a starting four in this league. But it's easy to really overlook some of the positive sides that P. Will is bringing to the game of basketball defensively. Because again, if it's not a block, if it's not a steal, or if you're not really watching the one-on-one switching defense, how he alters shots, it's easy to kind of overlook some of the things that P. Will does. I want to be clear there. It's easy to overlook some of the things that P. Will does. And Billy Donovan is just really right now relying on P. Will to bring a defensive aspect that no other big on this team is bringing. P. Will he's guarding up and he's doing pretty good against centers. Jalen Smith sucks defensively. Vooch sucks defensively. Julian Phillips is better at guarding threes and fours right now. Nikola Vucevic hasn't been anything defensively at the four position. I'm just saying that right now, to go over the defensive stats, people may not realize this. This is this season, not P. Will's career. P. Will is in the 81st percentile as far as block percentage when he's on the court. P. Will is getting 2.9% of the blocks when he's on the court. That's not usual. That's well above league average. Well above league average. He's in the 78th percentile as far as defensive rebounds. As far as versatility, he is guarding on the second most positions than any player not named Shai Gilgeous-Alexander so far in this NBA season. That is what P. Will is bringing to the basketball court right now. And I'm sorry, replacing him with Julian Phillips, replacing him with Nikola Vucevic in the starting lineup right now through 3 games doesn't look like it's going to be the best thing. Now, we'll see what will happen there. We'll see what will happen there, right? But as of right now, that's why I say no lineup changes coming soon, because the players that you would have replace Josh Giddey, the players that fans will have replace P. Will, the players that would have replaced Nikola Vucevic just aren't playing as good. Now, Jalen Smith is playing damn good in his role. That's why I'm not even talking about the center position in this segment. But let's be clear here. Jalen Smith, stylistically, with the way that he plays, he fists off lobs, putbacks, things like that. But Vooch is playing, as long as Vooch is playing this efficient, come on now. It is what it is. So this Bulls team is looking for internal development. That's what it's looking for. And so you're not going to see any type of lineup changes now. I hear the Bulls fans that are screaming about it, singing about it, desiring it, everything else. It's not coming yet. That's not to say that it won't come at some point this season. Not saying that at all. It very well may be a big change that's coming to this lineup at some point this NBA season. But right now, it's not coming. And it just isn't. So you guys can let me know how you feel on that down below for the live viewers. Let's go ahead. We're going to get into next. We're going to start about sticking with the youth on the bench and how Billy Donovan has really started the youth movement in a way that may have gone unnoticed by a couple of Bulls fans. We're going to talk about all that, but first, we got to get into the message from Game Time. Listen, most people like going to live events. If you don't have social anxiety like some of us do, shout out to myself. And Game Time is the place to go for all your live ticketing events. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks, the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And plus, if you toggle on the all-in pricing, this feature will show you the total upfront, so you have no surprise fees at checkout. And plus, with Game Time, you get a panoramic view of your seat, so you know exactly what you're going to be able to see on the floor before you actually purchase your tickets. Plus, they have the best return policy in the ticketing industry. If you find seats in the same section and seat for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Your purchase is covered by the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code. That's LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Bulls fans. By the way, we tell you guys, there's been a lot of people that's been asking. No, I'm not leaving Locked On Bulls. So if you're on the podcast feed, they have now what's called Locked On Nows, where there's a team that is, anytime there's a Bulls game, a Bears game, a Cubs game, a Sox game, a Blackhawks game, there's a dedicated team that's releasing about real quick 10-minute episodes after the game so you guys can get your up-to-the-game analysis. So if you see that on your podcast feeds, no, you're hearing a different voice. I ain't leaving. I ain't going nowhere. I'm not Pat. I ain't going to abandon y'all. No, shout out to my boy Pat, the designer. But I want to finish this off by talking about how the Bulls have implored the youth movement, but in a different way. Now, is it the right way? That will remain to be seen. I can't say that for sure or right now, right? That's only going to be told as the season goes on. Way too early in the season to say that. But when you look at it, you have, of course, your starting five of Coby, Zach, Nikola Vucevic, Patrick Williams, Josh Giddey. All those players are averaging 27 or more minutes. You then have Ayo Dosunmu, who's averaging 25 minutes per game. You have Jalen Smith, 14 minutes per game. Those guys, they were your first and second players off the bench. Lonzo, when he does play, is averaging 14 and a half minutes. But other than that, the next players up that are leading the Bulls in minutes off that bench. Julian Phillips is averaging 14 minutes per game. Manas Bucelis, only 7 minutes per game. I would really like to see that go up, especially in games where Lonzo does not play, right? And then you got Dalen Terry at 6.3 minutes per game. That's it, right? Those are the guys that Billy Donovan is trusting to have some of the most minutes coming off the bench in this team. And so he's giving them a chance to earn more. Now, there is a conversation to be had that if can Manas Bucelis and Dalen Terry really do much with 7 and 6 minutes respectively, right? Would it be better to take those 4 minutes away from Taylor Horton-Tucker to put Manas Bucelis at 11 minutes? Would it be better to take those 4 minutes that Javon Carter played one game and give those to Dalen Terry, right? Would it be better to do those things? But Billy Donovan has shown at least Julian Phillips is a guy that is part of his game plan every single night. There are times where you see Julian Phillips. There have been 2 games where you've seen Julian Phillips get into the game before even Ayo Dosunmu. Now, that Ayo's still going on and play more minutes, but Julian Phillips has gotten that, right? And this really falls in line with what we saw about Julian Phillips before he went down with injury last year. Julian Phillips was starting to be trusted by Billy Donovan as a rookie. He had started to pass up Torrey Craig on that depth chart as a rookie. So with Julian Phillips shooting, looking legit, Julian Phillips shot looks good. The three-point shot looks good. It needs to go in a little bit more, but I'll take him taking 3 of them and hit him at a 33% clip. He's basically averaging 1 3-pointer per game. He's building that confidence, right? So those things are happening right now for this team. And honestly, when you look at it, the fact of the matter is that maybe Julian Phillips is taking too many threes, because Julian Phillips right now is shooting 100% on 2-point field goals. 100% on 2-point field goals. And so while there's a clear investment in this youth movement, you got to start asking yourself as this season goes on, is that it's spreading the minutes out too much, actually not really helping these young players develop as much as they need to or could had you given them a few more minutes, right? So that's just something to monitor here when you keep going forward. That's something to monitor as this thing keeps going on. So, great point here from Will. The Bulls drafted P. Will for defense because he was drafted so high. Everybody wants him to have a better offensive game. That's a fact. And the Kawhi Leonard comparisons, I think those play a big role into that. Big role. But yeah, so as the Bulls keep going on and as this youth keeps developing for the Bulls, just keep in mind, just keep that looking out, right, to see how well we keep investing in this youth. Because right now, Billy Donovan's doing it more than we've ever seen him do it. Now, listen, I know some people will say, well, who else is he going to play? I'm sorry, but Billy Donovan of the last 3 years, I absolutely would expect him to play THT over Julian Phillips. I would absolutely expect Torrey Craig to have checked in the game by now over Amadis Bucelis, right? With how Billy Donovan has operated and relied on veterans in the past. And we're just not seeing that right now. So I'll give him some credit for that. Let's see how it works out. Let's see how it develops. But thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me personally at CEO Haize. And keep in mind, Locked On Bulls, your favorite Bulls podcast, now also has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Bulls daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Bulls newsletter. That's my time, guys. I love you guys, man. Go Bulls, see red. We'll be live after the game tonight. We'll see if Big Kev can slide through. We'll see what happens there, but love you guys. Go Bulls, see red. Peace.